Ferrari left Canada with a podium, but Lewis Hamilton left them with a problem they could not hide. The result looked like relief. The radio sounded like a warning. Hamilton finally looked alive in red, finally looked connected to the SF-26, finally gave Ferrari fans a reason to believe again. Yet even on his strongest weekend, the message stayed sharp. Ferrari still needs more speed on the straights. That is exactly the weakness Mercedes can punish, because it does not vanish through confidence or one perfect race. Hamilton did not sound broken after Canada. That made it more serious. He sounded calm, clear, and aware of where Ferrari still stood. A 7-time world champion does not talk about straight-line speed for noise. He knows what a strong power unit feels like. He knows what Mercedes can do when deployment, traction, and race pace all connect. Canada gave Ferrari a trophy feeling, but it also showed the SF-26 still has a gap where the 2026 cars are most exposed. While Hamilton gave Ferrari hope, Charles Leclerc felt the other side of the same car. One garage looked like progress, the other looked trapped in doubt. That split matters more than the podium itself, because a great Formula 1 car does not confuse its own drivers this deeply on the same weekend. The SF-26 has pace, but Canada suggested it appears only when everything lines up perfectly. The first clue was hidden inside the podium Ferrari wanted everyone to celebrate. Hamilton gave Ferrari the kind of Canada result that should change the mood of a season. Second place in red should have felt clean and powerful. Instead, it left Ferrari with a stranger problem. Their best moment still carried a warning inside it. The SF-26 looked fast enough to fight, but not complete enough to control the fight. That difference is why Canada cannot be treated like a normal comeback story. Mercedes did not need drama to make the message clear. Their package still looks sharper where the 2026 cars punish weakness most, especially traction, deployment, and straight-line pull. Hamilton could pressure, attack, and make the podium feel alive, but Ferrari still had to work harder for every chance. When a car needs the perfect pit window, tire phase, and driver rhythm to look dangerous, engineers do not relax. They start searching for the weakness the result covered. That is what made the podium uncomfortable. Ferrari got the headline, but Mercedes still looked like the reference. Hamilton gave proof that the SF-26 has life, yet he also showed that life appears only when conditions are right. A strong result can calm outside noise, but it cannot silence the timing sheets. The deeper clue was not hidden in the celebration. It was hidden in what Hamilton said after the race. Hamilton's radio did not sound like anger. It sounded like evidence. That is why the message hit Ferrari so hard. He was not throwing emotion into the air after a tough race. He was describing the part of the SF-26 that still refused to behave like a front-running car. Straight line speed matters when Mercedes is ahead of you. It decides when you attack, when you defend, and how much tire life you burn before DRS even opens. Hamilton knows that feeling better than almost anyone. He spent the strongest years of his career with Mercedes, so when he talks about power delivery and straight line speed, the paddock listens. What no broadcast covered is this. His comment was not only about engine power, it also pointed toward drag deployment, cooling, and how cleanly the car exits slow corners. If one part of that chain is weak, the whole lap becomes harder. Ferrari cannot treat that radio like a small complaint from a demanding champion. It was a map of where the SF-26 still loses before the wheel-to-wheel fight even begins. Hamilton gave Ferrari a result, then handed the engineers the truth behind it. The car has pace, but not the kind that lets a team control races on demand. The other side of the garage made that warning even harder to ignore. Leclerc's Canada weekend made Ferrari's situation harder to explain because his struggle did not look like a normal bad race. It looked like a driver fighting the car before fighting the field. While Hamilton found rhythm and belief, Leclerc searched for grip, brake feel, and trust. That contrast is the part Ferrari cannot ignore. Two elite drivers can prefer different setups, but they should not leave the same weekend describing two completely different machines. The issue was not only lap time, it was confidence. When tires refuse to enter the right window, every corner becomes a guess. Brake later, and the rear might move. Turn harder, and the front might wash away. Push early on exit, and traction disappears. That kind of doubt attacks a driver corner by corner, and for Leclerc, Canada became less about chasing rivals and more about surviving a car that never gave him a stable answer. That is why this garage split matters more than one result. Hamilton showed what the SF-26 can do when the balance lands correctly. Leclerc showed what happens when the same car falls outside its comfort zone. Ferrari is not dealing with one happy driver and one frustrated driver. It is dealing with a machine that may be too sensitive for a championship fight. Now the question moves from the drivers to the design itself. Ferrari's problem now looks bigger than one setup call or one strange weekend. The SF26 seems to have speed, but only inside a tight space where tires, balance, cooling, and deployment all agree. That is a dangerous way to chase Mercedes. A title car has to survive different tracks, temperatures, and race phases without losing its identity. Ferrari looked alive in Canada, but the way that pace appeared raised a sharper fear. The car may be fast only when the setup lands perfectly. The 2026 rules make that more punishing. These cars lean heavily on hybrid deployment, clean traction, and efficient drag levels, so one compromise spreads through the lap. Add wing and the car gains grip but loses speed on the straights. Trim wing and the car fights under braking and corner entry. The data tells a completely different story. Ferrari is not missing one magic switch. It is juggling a chain where fixing one weakness risks waking another. That is why simulator correlation matters so much inside Maranello. If the factory says one direction should work, but the track gives Hamilton one answer and Leclerc another, Ferrari's upgrade path becomes fragile. Every new part must help both drivers, both tire windows, and both race conditions. That is difficult when Mercedes keeps moving the target. Ferrari does not only need more performance now, it needs performance it can trust. Mercedes made Ferrari's Canada story feel smaller than the podium suggested. Ferrari had emotion, relief, and a result that looked strong on paper, but Mercedes had the cleaner signal. Their car looked easier to repeat, easier to place, and easier to trust across a full race. That matters because Ferrari is not chasing one lap anymore. It is chasing a package that creates pace without asking the drivers to rescue it whenever conditions change. This is where the pressure moves from Hamilton and Leclerc to the whole Ferrari project. Mercedes did not need a dramatic radio message to show strength. The car answered through exits, traction zones, and the way it carried speed without looking forced. Russell and Antonelli gave Mercedes 2 reference points, experience on one side, fearless speed on the other. That is a serious problem for Ferrari, because Mercedes is not relying on one driver finding rhythm. It is building repeatable performance. Ferrari now has to respond without breaking the strengths it already has. Add grip in the wrong place and drag grows. Chase speed too hard, and the car risks becoming harder for Leclerc to trust. Protect Hamilton's race comfort, and the team still has to make the same package work across both garages. Canada did not only show Ferrari what it has, it showed Ferrari what Mercedes already has. Ferrari's most uncomfortable question is not whether the SF26 has pace. Canada showed it does. The harder question is whether the weakness sits too deep inside the power unit to be solved with normal weekend changes. If the straight line gap is structural, Ferrari is no longer dealing with a car that needs polish. It is dealing with a development race where Mercedes may already be ahead in the area that shapes every overtake, defense, and long-run threat. That is why the ADU conversation becomes so sensitive. Ferrari does not want to be seen as a team needing recovery help under the engine rules. This is Ferrari. Their name carries weight because of speed, engines, and racing identity. So if the paddock starts asking whether Maranello needs extra development room to close the gap, the pressure changes instantly. It stops being only technical. It becomes political, emotional, and public. That is the dangerous part. Any move Ferrari makes now carries risk. Chase more straight line speed and the car may lose the balance Hamilton just started to trust. Protect the cornering window, and Mercedes keeps the advantage where Canada hurt most. Try to help Leclerc feel the car again, and the team still has to keep Hamilton's momentum alive. Ferrari is not choosing between good and bad anymore. It is choosing which weakness it can survive. Ferrari did not leave Canada with one clean answer. It left with 2 truths pulling in opposite directions. Hamilton proved the SF26 has enough life to fight near the front when the race falls into rhythm. Leclerc proved the same car still has a side that bites without warning. That is why the podium cannot be judged by the trophy alone. The result gave Maranello hope, but the weekend gave the engineers questions that matter more than celebration photos. The next test becomes colder because Monaco will not forgive confusion. If Ferrari's low speed strength is real, the SF26 should look dangerous there. Hamilton should carry confidence into the streets, and Leclerc should have a chance to rebuild trust in a place where feeling matters as much as raw speed. But if Ferrari arrives and the same split appears again, Canada stops looking like a turning point and starts looking like a warning Ferrari misread. That is the weight of this story. Hamilton did not expose Ferrari by failing. He exposed Ferrari by succeeding and still revealing what the car was missing. Leclerc did not weaken the argument by struggling. He made it sharper because his weekend showed how thin Ferrari's comfort zone may still be. Mercedes remains the standard, the SF26 remains unfinished, and Maranello now faces the only question that matters. Was Canada recovery or the cleanest warning Ferrari will get all season?